Adam, hi, Jim Delapine here. I want to do this video to give you some additional tips and advice and so on. So first of all, note that you need to have a saved and renamed selection as a channel, and you also need to have an adjustment layer that is a clipping mask. So I'm giving you the instructions for the saved and renamed selection as a channel in the comments, and also for the adjustment layer that is a clipping mask. All right, so let's talk about some ideas here for what I have in mind for this. So um, first of all, let's talk about the shadow that you have here. So if I have my move tool active and auto select checked, and I click on that shadow, it'll bring me right to that layer. So I note that it's solid black. If I alt click on the visibility icon, I can isolate only that layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that a true shadow. This gets very black, and if you want a shadow, this is the correct way to make one. So what I'm going to do is fill that layer with a medium gray. All right, if I click on this, I have a medium, well, a dark gray really. Okay, so I'll hit OK. So what I'm going to do now is check the log transparent pixel portion of that layer, which means that everything that's transparent is protected. Everything that's a solid pixel will be affected. So I'm now going to fill that layer with that gray by hitting Alt or Option Delete. All right, so it's now filled with gray. Now what I'll do is simply change the blending mode to multiply. All right, that is a true shadow. Every shadow you create should be in multiply mode. All right, so you can also adjust that by lessening the transparency. You could probably also deepen the shadow by duplicating that layer by hitting Control J, and then it gives you more control, so you can maybe adjust the transparency for that and so on. All right, so that being said, you did a fantastic job on the refine mask technique, or the select mask technique for the hair. That's really impressive. So let's talk about the text. I see that you have a graffiti look here, which is terrific. All right, so I'm going to make some adjustments here and suggestions. So I have your name here. I'm going to take that, hide it, and take the Todd text and bring it down here, and then put that on this wall because I have something in mind here. So I'm going to hit Control T to put a bounding box around all opaque pixels on that layer. So I don't have that font, so I'll just hit OK, and then zoom in, and then just scale this down a little bit. I want to place this on the wall here. So also I can now distort this. If I hold down my Control key or Command key, I can distort this to a certain degree by clicking and dragging the corners. Okay, so it gives you some additional abilities to twist it and so on. So let's say I'll accept that. So I'll hit Enter, and it's coming over this ledge here. So what I'll do is I'm going to rasterize this type layer, so now it's art. It's no longer an editable font, and I'll just I'm going to apply a layer mask. I like layer masks to hide things instead of deleting pixels. So if I apply a layer mask to that, go to my paintbrush, make sure it's in 100% opacity, and make sure I have 100% hardness. I'll now just mask out this portion, okay, because there's a ledge there. All right, so there. Okay, so now you also have additional options with blending mode, so I'll talk about that in a minute. So Terrible Toys. Okay, so this is, I like what you did with this. It's very nice. I see you fooled around with some layer styles. That's terrific. Let me show you some other options here. So first of all, I'm going to give you the link to dafont.com, and that gives you assorted graffiti fonts, okay, which I went in and downloaded just for this purpose. And so I created some text up here, Terrible Toys, and so this is one of those graffiti fonts, and I want to show you other options on what you can do with this. I like to place the name like as if it's like part of the background. So in this case, you don't really have too many options here, so I'll place Terrible on this wall back here, okay, up here. So Let me just first hit Control T and scale this down a bit so that it'll fit on that wall, maybe even distort it a little bit so it's bigger. Alright, and I'll do that, and that looks alright. I'll use my arrow key to increment it down a little bit. It moves it 1 pixel at a time, and I'll hit enter to apply the transformation. And now what I'll do is this. I'm going to distort this to make it look like it's going around these cement areas here. So if I'm going to take this text here and I'm going to rasterize the type. So now that's art. So now I have more control over it. So now I'll zoom in. So here's a wall that comes in and then out. So I'll put a selection around only this area right here and give it a look so that it looks like it's bending. Alright, so now we're conforming to this angle. And hit Control T. And then I'm going to hold down my Control key and click on the right middle bounding box and click and drag that straight up. Alright, so it's kind of like angle to the wall perspective. It's really not that dramatic of a difference, okay? But I just wanted to show you that as an option. I'll hit enter to apply the transformation, Control D to deselect, and then for over here where it's terrible, I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell what's going on here, but it looks like it. Let's just say this disappears behind this wall. Let's say this is an edge. I would select that part and down here, and I'm actually going to delete that, okay? So now it looks like it's going around the edge, maybe. All right, so we have that. So now what I'll do is I will, actually it doesn't look good, but I'm going to control click on that thumbnail. That puts a selection around all opaque pixels on that layer. I'll hide that layer, and I'll scroll down to the background that you have here, which is here. All right, and this is this background. I'm going to select the image portion of that layer and now hit Control J. So that will copy what's inside that selection from that layer to the layer above. And if I hold down my Alt or Option key and click on the visibility icon, it'll isolate to only that layer, and that's what I get. So it's seamless. So you don't see that it's above it. Okay, it's kind of seamless. So not kind of, it is. So now I'll apply a layer style to that by double clicking on that layer. And then I'll select bevel and emboss, and you can see the result here. So it's affecting only the pixels on that layer. All right, and let's see what else I can do to this. So note that to access the settings, you would select the name, and that gives you access to the settings in here. So you can determine the size or the depth, and so and so on. So you'd have to fool around with these to see what you like. Also note that there's a light source here, this little dial. So if you click and drag this, it'll change the light source. So that could be very important in certain cases. So, all right. So this is standing out nicely. I like that shadow. So we could also add a color to it. So if I click on Color Overlay, and then click in this color box here, I can choose a color. And so let's just stick with the same blue down here. So if I drag outside that color picker, it gives me the eyedropper tool and allows me to sample a color. So it samples that blue, and that's the result. I'll go a little darker and hit OK. Now you don't see this in 100% opacity. It's at 17%, so you can increase it. And you can also change the blending mode to that. So that could, make a dramatic difference also. So you can have fun with that. Overlay. All right, so I'll just hit OK to that. I want to show you that as an option. Okay, so the idea is to kind of make it part of everything. It's not that visible, but it's really the technique and the process that I want to show you that's most important. So toys, let's just say I'll place it on this wall here. All right, I'll hit Control T, scale it down a little bit, maybe rotate it. All right, so I'll place it something like that. Hit Enter. All right, and now what I want to do is wrap it around this wall. This is very obvious. So I'll rasterize the layer by right-clicking on it and rasterizing the type. Again, then going up here and then putting a selection around the area I want to wrap around. So this part here is obvious. This will wrap around This will change this angle, so I'm going to hit Control T, then hold down my Control key and pull this down. So that's kind of dramatic. Okay, so I'll hit Enter, and this here also wraps, so I'll select this portion. Now here's something that you'd want to know. All right, the Alt key does two things, or the Option key. It duplicates and subtracts from. The Shift key does two things. It constrains and adds to. Okay, so if I wanted to add to the selection, I'd hold down the Shift key and click and drag. Okay, if I didn't hold down the Shift key, this would deselect and I'd get a new selection. If I hold down the Alt key or Option key and surround a selection, it will subtract it. Okay, so this occurs with any selection tool. So if I go to my lasso tool, hold down my Alt key, and surround this portion of the S because I don't want to change that, all right, it will subtract that. Okay, so now the only thing affected is this part of the Y. So if I hit Control T, hold down the Control key and pull down, it's starting to give the illusion that it'll wrap around that corner to a certain degree. I'll hit Enter, and then I'll do this part here. All right, because this comes to be this surface here. So I hit Control T again, click and pull up. So it's not the best example, but you get the idea. All right. So now we go through the same procedure. Control clicking on that thumbnail to make a selection around all that. Hide that layer. Go down to the image part of your background and hit Control J, and then apply a layer style. So note that I can also copy the same layer style that I used here, to this layer, by Alt or Option click dragging that FX down to the new layer. All right, so it copies the same exact settings here, which I can change. Okay, if I wanted to, I could go in here to this double clicking on the FX, and let's see. I can change the color. For example, I'll just make this pink. All right, the same color as the hair. Hit OK, and that's good. Okay, so you have that. It is different than this. Okay, it's a different look, and if you want to apply that look to this, you would do the same principle of control clicking on the thumbnail. All right, hiding that layer, and then Control J-ing from the background. Okay, so what else? So now I've showed you the shadow. Don't forget, you also need to create an adjustment layer. There's a clipping mask. So for example, if I wanted to select the hair, I could change her hair color by creating an adjustment layer that is Use Saturation, and instantly Alt clicking or Option clicking between that layer. Now it's a clipping mask. So now any changes I make will occur only to that. All right, so let's just say, I can even colorize this. Let's just say I wanted to change the color of her hair. So let's make it purple. I'm saying her, I don't know why. All right, so I made it purple. All right, so now I'll X out of it. But what if I only wanted to make her hair purple and not her face? I would go into the layer mask portion of that adjustment layer, select the paintbrush, 100% opacity, black is my foreground color, increase my brush size by hitting the right bracket key. All right, left bracket key will reduce it, and then just painting on that mask very carefully, a lot more carefully than I'm doing, to mask out that portion of the adjustment layer. Okay, so you have that to work with. So now you've created an adjustment layer that is a clipping mask. If it's not a clipping mask, this would occur. If I Alt or Option click right here, it's now not a clipping mask, and it's affecting all of the underlying layers, which I don't want. Creating a clipping mask attaches it to the underlying layer, just like you did with the previous assignment, where you put an image above your name and created a clipping mask out of it. Okay, the clipping mask attaches itself to the pixels in the underlying layer. Okay, All right, so I'm going to stop there. I hope that helped. Great job, and take care. Bye. You know, there is something else I wanted to show you. Let me stop you. Let me go in here and do something here. All right, this is actually very cool. This is a very sweet looking troll here, but if you wanted to make it more terrible, you would maybe work with the mouth. So I'm going to select the mouth portion of this. I'm actually going to duplicate this layer. All right, so let me Control J that. All right, so that duplicates the layer. As long as there's not a selection, it will duplicate a layer. I'll hide the underlying layer. And now what I'll do is I'm going to just steal a portion of this. Let me just rasterize this layer. All right, and now apply the layer mask. Okay, so now it's just pixels on that layer. All right, I just want a portion of this mouth here. So I'm going to put a selection around this. I'm going to inverse the selection, Shift F7, and hit delete. Hit my backspace key. So that's all I want from that layer. I'm going to steal a portion of this. I'm actually going to steal only the mouth. So I'm going to put a selection around the mouth. This is kind of cool. I think you'll like this. All right, I'll do this, this. Okay. All right, again, I'll inverse the selection and delete it. So now what we have is a mouth. I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Rotate 180 degrees to make it upside down. What happened? Control 0. Where's the mouth? Oh, it's all the way up there. What happened here? I don't know why that happened. And it's picking up. Okay, that's because I have the clipping mask above it. So let me just drag this above that adjustment layer. All right, and now we clip this. All right, so now I have a mouth. So underneath that is this image here. So I want to put this mouth on this image. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, or what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to rasterize that layer. All right, hide this mouth I created. I'm going to deselect, and I'm going to go in here and get rid of this mouth by putting a selection around, fairly close to the mouth. All right. Holding down my Alt key and I'm clicking. That gives me the polygon lasso tool. Makes it a lot easier and saves your hand from cramping up. All right, so I'll do this. All right, so I have that selection. Now I'm going to hit Shift F5 because I want to fill this with the Content Aware feature. So this is going to analyze the surrounding pixels and should fill that or get rid of that mouth pretty much. So I'll hit OK, and there we go. All right, so it's not perfect, but I mean you can also, for example, go to your patch tool, surround this, right, and drag away, and that fills it in, calculates the other portion. So we now have no mouth. So now let me show that layer again. All right, I'll bring this down. So now I need to make this fit. So I'll hit Control T. Maybe I could distort this now. So, but let me scale this first. All right, I may want to go to Edit, Transform, Warp. All right, that gives me the ability to go in there and kind of twist this around a bit. All right, and really make him look more terrible. All right, so I'll do this. So you just have to be selective, and all right, so I'll do that. All right, so now here's what we're going to do. Have this blend in here more. So I'm going to apply a layer mask to that, and then I'm going to do this. Okay, so to continue, so now what we'll do is blend the edges in so that it looks like it's part of the face. So if I go to my paintbrush tool, what you want to do is have a soft edge brush. So 0% hardness, all right? And of course, reduce the brush size, hitting the left bracket key next to the P on your keyboard. And then I'm going to lower the transparency or impact of the paintbrush, so it gradually fades in. So I'm going to click and drag along the edges here. Note that I'm painting on the layer mask. And so this will kind of blend everything into the background. And so I'm just kind of running along the edges here and that kind of thing. So you can see how this can work. And if you make a mistake, don't forget, you can always go back in and swap for white and then paint that stuff back in. All right, so all right, I'm really just hitting the edges so it blends all in. Over here, I want this to be totally gone, so this will be back up to 100%, and then running along the edge here. All right, so that's kind of the result here. So you have that as an option. All right, you know, that looks a little bit dramatic. I may want to just crush this down. So either way, you could reposition the mouth and have fun with this. All right? All right. I'm going to stop here. Take care. Bye.